Welcome to Varsity Nutrition. I'm Derek Marks, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about your pre-training nutritional habits. The goal with your pre-training nutrition is to develop a routine to maximize energy availability, thereby improving performance. This is a habit that can affect your performance immediately. Athletes that I work with that don't have a pre-training routine typically suffer from early onset of fatigue. They come into a training session maybe not motivated. All sorts of things go sideways when you come into a training session not prepared. So hopefully from this talk, you're going to learn some strategies that will help you best prepare for your training sessions. The objectives today, we're going to review your optimal pre-training status. How do you want to approach every training session? We're going to identify some of the best foods to consume before training, and then even look at a pre-training timeline just to really focus on at what time in relationship to your training should you be consuming certain foods or even drinks. Let's start with pre-training status. It is ideal to start a training session with fully recovered carbohydrate stores. Carbohydrates in our body aren't stored in large amounts, and so going into a training session with low carbohydrates doesn't lead to good outcomes when it comes to performance. So we want to maximize carbohydrate stores. That relies on you having good daily nutritional habits. You're eating enough on a daily basis and you're eating enough carbohydrates on a daily basis to replenish those stores to prepare you for your next training session. Second thing you want to have is normal to even elevated blood sugar levels. Conversely, if you have low blood sugar, and surely all of you have had low blood sugar before and you know what it feels like, entering a training session with low blood sugar leads to a few things. Firstly, lack of motivation. When you have low blood sugar, you're usually not motivated to do anything, especially train hard. Secondly, it makes you feel hungry, and feeling hungry is a distraction from performance, so we don't want to enter a training session hungry. And thirdly, and maybe most important, when you have low blood sugar, your brain is not happy. Having normal to high blood sugar, your brain likes that. With low blood sugar, your brain actually thinks that you're running out of energy and will get kind of conservative with how hard it lets you train. And so what research shows us is that with low blood sugar, your brain doesn't allow you to activate the same number of motor units or muscle fibers as compared to when you have normal to high blood sugar. So really, one of the key focuses of hitting a training session is to make sure your blood sugar is normal to high. How do you know? Hard to know exactly. You don't have to test your blood sugar. At the very least, hunger is the best tool that you can use. So going into a training session not feeling hungry lets me know that you at least have normal blood sugar. Follow some of the strategies in this talk and you might have even a nice little elevated blood sugar, just enough to fuel that training session. Finally, the last part of your pre-training status should be that you have normal hydration status. We're not going to get much into hydration during this discussion, but normal and good consumption of water and fluids throughout the day help you perform at your best. Let's look at a little timeline. This timeline on the screen on the top, we're looking at kind of a time of day. So I've arbitrarily selected an afternoon training session that goes from 3:30 to 5:30, so up across the top here. This middle timeline is time before the training session. So I've kind of lined them up, right? So if you do a morning training session or evening training session, really rely on that middle timeline. So if we look at 3+ hours out, that's a long time before training, not even really pre-training at that far out. Just eat regular food, have a normal meal. In this context, in this slide at least, that's lunchtime. Have a normal lunch if you have like an after school afternoon training session, right? So 12 o'clock lunch, have your normal lunch. In that time between lunch and your training, so there's sort of this 1 to 3 hours before your training session, don't have a full meal, but have a significant snack, especially if you didn't have a big lunch. So having a small meal or a big snack during that time is really important. Peanut butter jelly sandwich, maybe yogurt with granola, hard-boiled egg with some cheese sticks. It can be mixed. It doesn't have to just be carbohydrates. Mixed foods at that time are fine. Now we're into this orange block. So you're within an hour of training. So for a lot of athletes, this is that time maybe getting out of class and having just enough time to maybe go to the locker room, get changed, or go home and, get ready for practice, whatever it is. You have an hour before training. You didn't eat for maybe an hour, maybe a couple hours. You're a little bit hungry. Important to have a little snack here. Light snack, not a big heavy snack, and one that's definitely high in carbohydrates. So, banana, fantastic. Maybe a small sports bar or a half a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Those are all really high carbohydrate foods and foods that will be digested quickly, make it into your body in time for that training session. So this red area, this red timeline, 30 minutes before training, what do? You're getting up to your training session. If you followed those previous time blocks previously and had meals and snacks, you may not need to do much, if anything, during this time. If you are feeling at all hungry, you need to have something, right? And even if you're not hungry, having something liquid at this time, some liquid either for hydration or for energy, is also a good idea. So this 30-minute before training, having something liquid is the best way to get whatever you consume to your muscles to be used for energy. So have your carb drink. Bananas, again, are a great idea here because they do digest quickly and get into our body quickly. Even, small piece of a sports bar or something sweet, a gummy or a gel, those are also fine during this time frame. If you consume a pre-training supplement, of course, this is when you're going to have that, right? All those things combined will lead to really top quality pre-training status. They all kind of depend on the quality of the one previous. So good habits and good practices throughout the day make that time right before training less critical because you're really fueled up. The more you ignore those earlier time slots, let's say you skip lunch on a given day, the more emphasis gets put on those time spaces as you butt up to practice. A huge take-home message from this talk is please don't ever train hungry. As mentioned earlier, when you're hungry, that's your brain's way of saying, I need food, I want food, and it also probably means you have low blood sugar. If you are in that situation, something is better than nothing, right? Life happens. Things go sideways. You don't always have time to prepare and bring food with you and have access to whatever you need to prepare for a training session. That's okay. If you're hitting a training session hungry, a handful of anything, a couple swigs of a carbohydrate drink or whatever it is, can go a long way at making your brain happy, bring your blood sugar back up to normal, and improving the quality of your training session. A little more focus on the foods now. So as you get closer to training, and it was kind of mentioned in the previous slide, you want to focus more and more on carbohydrate foods. The closer you get, the more focus on carbohydrates, lesser focus on proteins, and really you can start ignoring fats. The challenge with fats and proteins are that they're really slow to leave the stomach, and anything that's in your stomach when you're training isn't doing you any good. And some of you have surely had a heavy training session with a lot of food in your stomach. It's actually really distracting. You might get gassy, you might get bloated or side aches and all that kind of stuff. So fats and proteins in foods are likely to slow down the rate at which that food leaves your stomach, leading to not the best outcomes when it comes to training. And secondly, they're not really as energy rich in terms of access to energy as carbohydrate foods are. Carbohydrates, when they get into our blood, they're most readily and most quickly available for us to use as an energy source. Proteins and fats are really quite slow. You want to consume easy to digest foods as well. And that's something of a personal thing. Everyone kind of has different tolerance in terms of what foods mess with their guts and what don't. But generally speaking, carbohydrate wise, the more processed they are, and this is one of those times where if you're really close to a training session, a more processed carbohydrate is actually better than a really, fibrous, grainy, nutty type of one, right? So the types of foods that you tolerate well. Bananas are always one of my go-to choices. Things like oatmeal and breads are typically pretty easy for most people. Some people do really well with rice. You know what your personal comfort zone is. Follow that. Some suggestions for high carbohydrate and easy to digest foods. And again, not all these work for everybody, but yes, oatmeal is one of my favorites. You can put things in it to make it fancy. You can just eat it, with nothing in it. Doesn't matter. Really good way to get carbohydrates in your body. Smoothies, and especially smoothies that have a bit of fruit in them. I know there's green smoothies out there, probably not the best pre-training, but more fruit smoothies can be really good. Just be mindful of the volume. You don't want them to be huge because they will take a while to leave your stomach. Peanut butter jelly sandwich, bagel with spread, all these examples here, high carbohydrate, easy to digest foods. So takeaways from this conversation: please don't ever train hungry. That is the big one. Focus on your daily habits to prepare yourself for training. That really is about carbohydrate intake and eating enough energy. enter a training session with maximum carbohydrates available and normal blood glucose. Focus on those carbs and experiment to see what works for you, and then make it a routine. Thank you.